Okay, I want to share some things with you here as we get going here. And you can just kind of give me the thumbs up if you think this is good news or not. I want to just share some things that's news through the week, and you tell me if you think it's good news. Gas prices are down. Up, good deal. I like that. Election will be over with Tuesday. Good. Had y'all aware that Tom Tillis and Kay Hagan are going to run against each other? Had y'all picked up on that? Okay. I just want to make sure. The television show Honey Boo Boo has not been renewed for this season. Good news. Okay. All right. Some of you are aware of what was going on down in Houston, where the mayor of the city had subpoenaed some of the ministers in the city that they had to turn in their sermons and emails and text messages, anything that dealt with the homosexual issue stance that the churches had taken. You're probably aware with that. Well, the good news on that is there's been so much of a public outcry about that and against that they have withdrawn all of those subpoenas. So I think that's good news. But we do not need to close our eyes and think the battle's over. That's just the first shot, that it's going to be attacking anyone that speaks out on those things. Also this week, so that's a thumbs up there. Also this week, you probably read, I think it was in Idaho, that a marriage chapel there run by a husband and wife, and some people wanted to be, same-sex couples wanted to be married, and they said, that's just against our beliefs. Well, they've been sued now, and they're being threatened by the government of the state and the city there with, I think it's like $1,000 a day fine and jail time, 6 months jail time, if they do not comply with that. But they've dug their heels in, and they're standing toe, they're not backing down on their beliefs. So thumbs down on that kind of thing happening in our country. Have to have a news headline to know that there's trouble in America, there's trouble in our families in the church. And we as a staff and as the elders, we talk, but it's Greg Webb on our planning retreat that we take every year that we were talking about. We were looking at some of the things that's going on with our church and our people and our young people. Talking about, we know what's being taught. We know what's being preached. We know that they're getting the message, the right message here, but then they're going out into the community and they're making such terrible choices. And the word we came up with is, what is the disconnect between what's being taught here and what's being lived out there? And we kept going on about it, and that led us to begin to look to say, hey, we've got to find something where we're losing this battle from here to out there somewhere. And I think it was Eric that in research found the movement, the initiative, the Faith at Home movement, and we introduced you to that a couple of weeks ago when Mark Holman was here. And that began where we said, we've got to find a way to win this battle, and we feel like it's got to begin in the home. And Mark, when he was here a couple of weeks ago, he preached using this passage in Deuteronomy 6. And one of the verses he preached some says, "Hear, O Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in a land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your fathers, promised you." And this was as they were getting ready to enter into the promised land. And this was told to them. And then down in verse 7, it says this, and this is where we're really basing this all. It says, "Impress them on your children," talking about the commands. Talk about them when you sit at home, and when you walk along the road, and when you lie down, and when you get up. And we realized that if we're going to become a church made up of families who are faith at home families, and if we're going to have that intentional outlook in everything we do and every day of the week and every decision that we make, that for a large part it's going to require change. Change in how we do things here at church, and change how we do things in our homes. And a makeover is kind of extreme makeover is what we're talking about. A new way of thinking and doing things. Now last week Eric put a contemporary twist to that verse 7 there, where it talks about impress them on your children as you walk along the road, when you sit at home, when you lie down, when you get up. And he kind of gave us those things to look at. It says, when you're riding in a car, use that time. Use that as teachable moments. When you put them to bed at night, when you get up in the morning, all of the teachable moments that you have with your children, we have to take advantage of. And today, I just want to pause and pick out another key piece of the puzzle to make us faith at home homes, and then we'll be a faith at home church. Is one of the greatest agents of stability and when change is needed in the home that God gave us is the mother, is the mom. And you're going, well, the power went off, I know, but did we skip all the way to Mother's Day in May? We're going to talk about moms? No, we're going to talk about them today. It's not Mother's Day. We want to talk about the importance of the mom in the home to make it a faith at home. And I also just want to stop and look at a famous mother from the Old Testament. Now, I don't know about you. When I started thinking about mom this week, I started thinking of all the things the symbols of motherhood that I remember as growing up. And some of the things that I thought of, I just still see my mom in her back bedroom sitting at the sewing machine. Now, some of you, if you don't know what a sewing machine is, Google it. You'll find a picture of it somewhere, and they'll tell what it does. But I still see her sitting at the sewing machine. I still see her, cooking. The pots and pans and cooking up the things. Ladies, Google it. There's, there, and all the things, and just cooking those favorite foods. When she found out what your favorite was, she was going to cook it as many times as she possibly could. I think about my mom also, that this was her Bible. And she passed away in 1989, and we still keep that on our bookshelf, and I'll pull it out every once in a while and open it up. Still has her highlighter in there and all the places she had highlighted, notes she had written in and things. And I have a great deal of memories of just seeing her at very, very early in the morning reading her Bible and highlighting before she'd go to work. But that's memories of symbols that I have. And I know times change. Maybe for some of you, our young people that are here today, that they can identify with a different symbol. Maybe you see, if I was holding a steering wheel up here, that the symbol of your mom is that she's always the one who gets you where you need to be. She's the one who drives you to school and has you at the important places you need to be. Or maybe it's her phone, because she's always staying in touch. She's always lining something up. Or maybe if you could think of a banner of a cheerleader, the pom-poms or whatever, because your mom is your greatest encourager, and she's your greatest cheerleader in life. But whatever you picture in your mind about your mother, you need to know this. The mother is the heartbeat of the home. The mother is the heartbeat of the home. And the home is the heartbeat of the church. As the home goes, so goes the church. Now I want us to take a look at a woman here who wanted desperately to be a mom. And we can learn some things from her. Her name is Hannah. For some of you that have been know your Old Testament, you recognize that name there, the story of Hannah. Now, if we don't have it on the screen today, but there in your Bibles, either from the back of the pew in front of you or the Bibles you brought, turn to 1 Samuel, Old Testament book of 1 Samuel, chapter 1. We're going to stay there the whole time, not going to be turning anywhere else. And as you're turning there, I'm going to go ahead and kind of set the scene, the setting for what's going to take place. Hannah is married to a man named Elkanah, and she is childless. She desperately wants to be a mother, and she's very upset. She's distraught about it. And if you want to read between the lines as you read this story here, you can even see that she has signs of being depressed or suffering from depression over this. And each year the family would go up to a town called Shiloh, and they would offer sacrifices to God there. And on one of these trips, we see that this takes place, what we're getting ready to read. And we're going to start with 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 8, and you get to see one of one of the dumbest comments that a husband could ever make. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 8 says this. Elkanah, her husband, would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? Well, Elk, old boy, apparently not. She's upset. She wants children. She may be happy with you, but she wants her sons, her children. Well, that kind of gets you know where things are. Verse 9 says this. Once when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli the priest was sitting on a chair by the doorpost of the Lord's temple. In bitterness of soul, Hannah wept much and prayed to the Lord. And she made a vow, saying, O Lord Almighty, if you will only look upon your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. Now, I think we can all understand where Hannah's at right now, how she's feeling. But there, that last phrase there, no razor will be ever used on his head, this is part of the Nazirite vow. And it was a vow that a parent would make for a child, or a man would make before God, that to be a Nazirite would be, you'd be totally dedicated to God. And there were several things that went along with it. They never would cut their hair, never touch a dead body, and would never drink any fermented drink, alcohol of any type. And she's saying, if you give me a son, I'll dedicate him to you. I want us to kind of think about what we're going to read about Hannah here is seasons in life that she's in. And the first season that she's in, and we're going to see they parallel with us, season we find her in is the empty season of life. Verse 12 and 13 says this. As she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk. Now, you can imagine Eli seeing this woman over here, and I'm sure she's looking very distraught, and she's praying, but no words are coming out. He just sees her mouth moving, and he thinks that she's drunk. And so being a man of God, he feels like he needs to say something. Verse 14. And said to her, how long will you keep on getting drunk? Get rid of your wine. Not so, my Lord, Hannah replied. I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I have been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. Eli answered, go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him. She said, may your servant find favor in your eyes. Then she went her way and ate something, and her face was no longer downcast. She may have been childless. She may have been feeling that her life was in an empty season. But now she has something that she didn't have before. She has hope because she's reached out to God in this. Now, I realize that on a day like today, with a topic like today, and a lot of times on Mother's Day or sometimes on Father's Day, the emotions are really, really raw in our hearts because these can be difficult days. You may find yourself in Hannah's situation where you want children and can't, or you've lost a child, or maybe it's you lost your mom, or maybe you wish you had had a great relationship with your mom and it just hasn't been. And for whatever reason, these kind of sermons, these kind of topics can really, really get us emotional, And I understand that. I always get emotional around Mother's Day myself, and when I start talking about the goodness of a mother, things like that. But what I want us to do is to concentrate and look at what Hannah was doing here. What Hannah was doing in this step of her life is she was establishing a partnership with God. And she is saying to God, God, I want a son, but I want a son that I can bless you with. She's entering into partnership with God, saying, God, if I can only have a son, I will dedicate him to you. I will bless you with my son. I don't think that Hannah could have known what a great blessing that her son was going to be. That Samuel was going to turn out to be the Samuel that we read about in the Bible. That what a great man of God that he turned out to be. Can you imagine how proud she was? That every time somebody would mention Samuel, or Samuel had spoke, or the word could come from Samuel, or the king had sent for Samuel, how proud this mother was. I read this story this week that Barbara Streisand, when she made her comeback concerts some years ago, that her comeback concert, it was a huge success, big sellout in New York City, that she had her mother there, her 83-year-old mother, sitting down like on the second row. And it was no secret that their relationship had been strained, not a good relationship basically their whole life. And at one point during the concert, she went down and said to her mother, she said, "Are you proud of me now?" You know, you can just read so much into that. That all the fame, all the riches, all their admiration, she was still looking for something from her mother. You know, this is a great time for moms to realize, to evaluate, to reevaluate, and ask yourself this question. Am I in partnership with God in the raising of my sons and daughters? Do my children know that? I mean, I think it's important that children know that I'm raising you in partnership with God. Are they building that type of partnership, that type of relationship? Now, if you didn't have that in your childhood, we all come from so many different, varied backgrounds. None of us come from the exact same background. If you didn't have that kind of relationship with your mom, where you knew they were in partnership with God, or there's a strained relationship now, and you see it carrying over into the raising of your children, today is the day to break that cycle and say, I will move into partnership with God, and my children will know it, that they're going to have the benefit of being raised as God would have them to be raised. Now, this just naturally leads right into that second season, and that's where she moves from empty season to a filled season. Verse 20 says, So in the course of time, Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, Because I asked the Lord for him. You know, wanting to move from an empty season to a filled season is natural. I mean, that's what we all want, no matter what. We're wanting to move from that time to a fulfilled season. But we just need to remember this, that no matter how noble the thing we fill our lives with, or we want to fill our lives with, even if it's family, even if it's children, it is temporary. Even children, it's temporary. And that's okay, as long as we recognize that, as long as we realize that. No matter what, it is temporary. Whatever we choose to do in life, if we try to feel like, if I only had this house, if I only had this car, if I only had that job, if I only had this degree, if I only had this child, one more child, whatever, if I only had this kind of husband, this kind of wife, if we recognize those things are never going to feel what God can only feel, it's okay. Moms, instead of concentrating on being filled, fill the home with good things. You are the one who sets the tone in the home for peace, for love, for joy, for acceptance. My childhood, it made me, working on this week, it made me just stop and think about my childhood. I had a great childhood. I loved my childhood as I look back. But I look back and I say, I had a great childhood because of my mom. What she did. I had a great home, not because everything was perfect, but because I had a great home life, because I had a mother who made sure we overcame the obstacles that were in our home. Moms, you set the tone of the home. To be a faith at home, we must realize our homes have been filled with children not for our sakes, but in order that we may enter into a partnership with God. But in every partnership, there's a cost. And let me say that again. In every partnership, the cost was high. But for us today, we need to realize that the cost is not in letting them go, because they're going to grow up and move on. They're going to start making their own decisions. They're going to move on. And some of you are going, hopefully. Hopefully. But they're going to that. That's not the cost of the partnership. They're going to do those things themselves. They're going to grow up. They're going to move out. They're going to make their own decisions. But the cost of the partnership is saying, God, I'm not going to make all the decisions for my children. You are. I'm going to enter into a partnership with you, and I'm not going to just say, I'm going to do this for my child, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this because I want to. And say, no, I'm doing it in partnership with God, and what He says is what we're going to do. That's the cost. You're giving up some of the reign or authority you may think you have. And that just leads right into that third season in Hannah's life. And that's what I call poured out. Remembering her promise to God, this is what happened. Verse 24. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour and skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When they had slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli. And she said to him, As surely as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord. And he worshiped the Lord there. How old was Samuel when Hannah took and left him with Eli? If you say the weaned stage, you're talking about 2 to 3 years old. A lot of scholars seem to think that probably it was later, because to carry a child at that age, it would have actually been, Eli would have been taking care of Samuel instead of Samuel being a help to him at the temple. So some say 7, 10 years old. We don't know. All we can do is just guess. Either way, whatever the age is, we know that it emphasizes that Hannah's time with Samuel was short. She had to be intentional with her time. There could be no wasted moments or seasons in life. She had to live the fact that she was raising Samuel to release him, to pour him out. We have them for such a short time, amen? I've heard parents say that their children will just be 4 or 5 years old, and they'll say, I really can't even remember what they looked like when they were 9 months old. You forget how quick it moves and how quick you forget those things. The time of influence is now. Don't put off the important things. Now, I was doing something this week. This is what a man does. I was flipping channels. I had the remote in my hand, and that is God ordained, that the man is to have the remote. You do know that. And I was doing what a man does, and I was flipping through the channels, and I came to ESPN, and they were doing one of those 30-30 deals on Michael Jordan. And I just stopped there for a few minutes, and they just had asked Michael Jordan, basketball great player, he's an owner now. They said, what's the biggest adjustment, the biggest difference between being the player that you were and now that you're the owner of a team? And without batting an eye, he said, it's the adjustment of realizing that I cannot have a direct impact on the game. He said, when I was a player, when I knew that something that needed to be done so that we could win the game, he said, I just did it. He said, I was there. I could do it. He said, I'm an owner now. He said, I don't have that impact. He said, so all my work and all my thought, everything goes into preparing and getting the tools for the players, putting everything in place that they can impact the game. He said, and he went on to say, he said, if we ever win a championship, if I ever win a championship as an owner, it will be more gratifying than the ones I won as a player. He said, because I know what goes into this. And I listened to that and I said, I saw the correlation between what he's talking about and the impact on the game and what a parent has to deal with, what they have to live with. You have your children for a time and you're raising them. And when they're little, you make every decision. You directly, every moment of every day, impact their lives. You decide what they're going to wear. What you put on the spoon and put in their mouth is what they're going to eat. They lay down when you lay them down. They go to bed when you put them to bed. Everything. But you know, each year, some days it's each day, that changes. And it becomes less and less of a direct impact on their daily life. And that's natural. That's God ordained. That's the way He laid it out. And until a time comes where they move out of your house, they're going to decide what job they take. They're going to decide what schools. They're going to decide if they get married and who they married and if they have children and how many children. They're going to decide all that as they move away. And your direct impact time will be gone. But here's the wonderful thing. If we do our job right, if we use those years of having direct impact, then later on, they live out what you fed into them, what they played out. I was talking to Doug Clemmer this Wednesday night when we were doing our Night of Lights. You know, we did it in 2 stages this year. And I was talking to Doug, and he said, the kids are here tonight on Wednesday night to play. He said, Friday night, when we do it for the community, he said, I'll be back with my 2 oldest, and they will work. Because I want them to realize there's play and there's service. You see, Doug's time of impact will end someday where he can't tell them, go to the church and work. But our plan is that we have impacted them, that they'll serve on their own later. Well, one of the things that we want to do moving forward, we said it requires change at home and it requires change in the church if we're going to be a faith at home church, is that we want to put resources in your hands as often as we can. And that's why we brought Mark Holman in with Faith at Home and tried to get just a good start with that. Each week, or not every week, but every time we come across a good resource, we want to share that with you. Now, we would have been up on the screen so you'd have had a time to write these down. I have 3 small books. You can tell they're small books up here. Moms, parents, that I think that a good place to start. I got 2 of them here. Building Family Ties with Faith, Love, and Laughter by Dave Stone. Raising Your Kids to Love the Lord by Dave Stone. And then one by Mark and Maria Holman, Faith Begins at Home, Mom. And you can see they're very small. We had a bunch of these, and all of them left during the seminars when Mark was here, but we've ordered more, so they're coming. I'm just going to leave these laying up here. You can come up and write down the titles, look at them. You can take your camera, take a picture of them, and then look them up on Amazon or whatever when you get home. But these are some resources that we want to pass on to you as well to look at. But in the meantime, I want to share this with you as we close. Number 1, understand, like Hannah, that your children are a gift. Hannah named her son based on that fact that he was a gift from God. Secondly, understand our time is limited, so make the most impact you can while you have them for the longest time. And you're asking, how do I do that? Well, let me just share a couple of things. On a very practical basis, use what's already right in front of you. Here at Macedonia, starting with our nursery, there's a place to carry your children to. And they can start building a relationship with other people in the church. We have our preschool program, which we've always called for years graded worship. There's a place where they can be taught while you're here, they're in there, and they're learning some things. You've got Kids Church that Greg Webb leads, or Dustin leads every Sunday. Great place for our kids. Another continuation is that every week when you go to pick up your kid, your child from right on through the week what they got today. There's the Wednesday night youth groups. There's the mission trips. There's service opportunities. There's all the things. That's right there in front of you. Use those now. But faith has to be at home. And the greatest thing we can do is realize that and make a commitment to God that right now, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we are a faith at home family. Grandparents, you may think your impact on those grandchildren, on your children as they've moved on. Realize the impact you do and can have. Samuel went on to be a tremendous servant of God. He blessed the whole nation of Israel. He was known by all of Israel. He was admired by kings. And proudly watching in the wings was a mother named Hannah, who realized her role in making this great servant of God. And that's what we need, are the Hannahs in the sidelines doing that. I want to pause here as we close out our time today, and I just want to pray for our mothers. I want all mothers just to know that we're lifting you up today. The job that you have is extremely important. It cannot be replaced. We want to pray for you right now. Let's bow our heads, pray together. God, as we come to you now and remember what an awesome job that our moms have, I want to pause and just pray for our working moms. I'm sure, the pressures that they have, and probably at times feel like that they're not giving enough time to their children. Help them to know that and be strong in the fact that their influence is so important. To use the hours wisely that they have. Father, I want to pray for the single moms here who feel overwhelmed and feel like they're in this game alone. There's no father, maybe not even a grandfather there to be there. But help them to know that you are the God who said you're the God of the fatherless. So you're there for them. Give them strength. Give them the men of the church who will be that fatherly influence in their lives as well. Father, I pray, we'll pray for the stay-at-home moms. And I know by staying at home, sometimes it really puts a strain financially. So we just pray that the dollars will be stretched, that they'll hold out, that they'll be able to continue to do the things that they've chosen to do for their family. We also want to pause and pray for the mothers who need comforting here today, for whatever reason, that you'll just comfort them. Give them the healing power that you extended to Hannah, you extended to every one of us here in this room. And Father, we just pray for everyone here that we will be strengthened for the task, that we will see this thing 10, 20 years down the road, what it will be if we are faith at home moms, faith at home families, faith at home church. We pray these things in your holy name. Amen.